So the community has been complaining about the resin situation for quite some time. It has been a massive bottleneck for everyone that's actually getting into the later part of the game. In fact, if you're trying to gear up your characters, if you're trying to level up your talents, it's a massive drain with 20 resin used for only one book, and sometimes you can require up to 4 to 8 books. It's a ridiculous amount of grind, and the game is essentially forcing you to spend money if you actually want to get anywhere. This in turn will actually push players away who are there just for the free-to-play experience. There are enough whales out there to allow for free-to-play players, and when they have multiplayer events, you want those free-to-play players to be there to accommodate the whales. Well, so after all the complaining, MiHoYo has finally responded and caved in. Or have they? So let's get into it. They released a developers discussion blog. MiHoYo released a developers discussion blog where they answered the top questions for people, and they believed that this was the right way to go about things. Question number 1 was, I have never enough original resin, which makes it difficult to complete various daily tasks and weekly battle pass missions. This is actually a legitimate thing. Their response was, in version 1.1, we have decreased the original resin requirement in Battle Pass weekly missions from 1,600 to 1,200. This now means that you can actually complete your resin requirement if you do all your objectives every single day, which is pretty cool. Furthermore, travelers will be able to store up to a maximum of 160 original resin, increased from the current limit of 120. Now, on face value, people will look at this and go, yes, they're reducing the weekly resin, which is great, I can now further in my battle pass, and they're also increasing how much I can store per day. Now, for those of you that work or can't get on in the morning to use that bit of resin and then finish it off in the evening, this will be fantastic. This just means that you can sign in at any point during the day and complete your daily requirements. But this does not at all in any way, shape or form solve the current dilemma that there is not enough resin in the day. There is still only 180 resin that you can get per day. This does not tell us if the resin requirement is being reduced from 1 resin every 8 minutes. If it's going down to say something like 1 every 4 minutes, that means we're getting 360 resin a day. That is the difference the recovery timer of resin actually makes. They need to reduce that requirement of 1 every 8 minutes to something like maybe 1 every 4 or 5 minutes in order to actually fix the problem. This solution that they've got here does not fix the problem. In fact, it actually does nothing to the problem, and actually too many people that I'm seeing online, they find this quite insulting that they thought that by increasing the maximum resin to 160 they could get away with it. It's kind of a slap in the face to say, well, we're just going to do this to cater for those players that can't get on during the day, which is totally acceptable and I appreciate it. But this does not tackle the problem of not having enough resin. The way to tackle this, if they're going to go with a system, is quite simple. Either reduce the timer that is required for each resin replacement, or at the adventure counter, once you've completed your dailies, your 4 commissions that you have per day, make it so that the Adventurer Guild will provide you with 2 additional resin refills that you can use throughout your journey. At least then, that will be another 120 you can add to your 180, and then that 180 becomes 300. That is still a decent alternative to what we have now. The ideal situation would be for them just to reduce how long it takes for each resin to replenish, but currently in its state, that is just not a fix. It's a fix for another problem, but it is not a fix to the resin problem. Question number 2, I want to change key bindings controller setup. They responded with saying, we are in the process of developing a key bindings and controller setup function, part of which will go live in version 1.1. I assume that's going to be the PC part. We're firing on all cylinders to complete the remaining functionality, which will become available to players in a later version. Question 3. I wish there were more ways to filter artifacts. This is a big problem of mine, and something else that I would actually like here that wasn't requested is the fact that when you're going to infuse stuff into other artifacts, when you're selecting them, to actually be able to see the stats on the ones you're selecting. You never know which one you're trying to use. It's impossible to see the difference. So it's quite easy to use 3-star items that you actually want to keep for whatever reason and burn them and use them as fuel, and it's a problem that needs to be resolved. But sadly, that isn't actually one of the questions or one of the things that's actually spoken about here. But the question here is, I wish there were more ways to filter artifacts, and the answer for that one was, in version 1.1 we have added new filters for artifacts based on their basic attributes. Now, travelers will be able to easily filter artifacts by attributes, and by attributes they mean the primary stat. So at least that's something, but it's still not the thing I wanted. I just wanted a little tooltip that could pop up when you're highlighting them, when you're going to infuse, and actually show me these are the stats on these, because if it's a complete trash artifact, burn it, right? You don't want it there because it's just sitting there and it's ugly, you don't want it. But if it's a good artifact, you want to know it's a good artifact, and you can't know it's a good artifact until you actually go back into the artifact menu and see it. And then there's no way to mark it, so you know that's the one you're using. So it's a bit fiddly. The tooltip would have basically made that easier. Question number 4, traversing the game world is time consuming. I want to be able to set my own teleport waypoints for areas that I frequently visit. Now, I generally don't find the world of Teyvat personally that big to explore. There's teleports everywhere. I think people are just now getting lazy. Their response was, we have developed an item that provides this kind of function, which will be available for free in a new system. Travelers can look forward to this in version 1.1. Now, to me, this is a waste of development time, and maybe you guys will love this feature. But for me, there are enough teleports in the world of Teyvat that allow me to get to everywhere in pretty quick fashion. The fact that you want to teleport to the doorstep is silly, and I'd rather they had used that development time on something that would benefit the player base more than something that quite honestly is lazy. Question number 5. It's annoying to have to select equipped artifacts and weapons to find out which character has them equipped. This is true, and I never know who's equipped what, but they are fixing this, and I am actually grateful for this one. They answered in version 1.1, small character avatars will appear next to the icons of equipped artifacts and weapons, allowing travelers to know exactly which characters have which artifacts and weapons equipped at a glance. Now, overall, a lot of these changes are really good. They're coming in 1.1, which is on the 11th of November. But the resin situation still isn't resolved, and MiHoYo really need to react better to the situation. I understand they want to make money, it's a free-to-play game, but they're making a metric ton of money through the gacha system anyway, and that is going to be where they make the majority of their money, and they are making the majority of their money. I am seeing people spending $100, $200, $300, $2,000 on the gacha system just for Klee. They're not doing that for the actual resin. They're not doing that for resin because you can't do that anyway, because the simple fact is you can only refill 3 times a day. You can only refill a certain number of times a day. Therefore, just fix the resin system so people can play longer. If they get invested into your game more, you'll find that they want to spend more. It's a win-win situation for you. You may be taking a little bit of a hit at the start, but I assure you, the more people that are playing your game, the more chance you have of them spending money in your game. And if you keep pushing your player base away by not allowing them to stay in the game for longer than half an hour once they get to that portion of the game, well, you're going to have a big problem. Releasing new characters, no one's going to be interested in them because they physically can't level them. There's no way to gear them up. They don't have enough books, they don't have enough materials, and there is a massive block in actually them getting to that point. So overall, I'm happy for what they're doing with the resin situation right now in terms of providing us an option to actually, complete the battle pass. And I'm also happy that for those people that can't get on during the early part of the day, they're no longer penalized and they can actually get their 150 done every day by just logging on in the evening and getting it done. But the core issue with resin hasn't been dealt with here, and if this is their solution, I think this is going to annoy a lot more people than they realize. Well guys, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you found it useful, informative. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. If you did enjoy the video, hit that like button, it means the world to me. Hit that subscribe button, we're so close to 200. Don't forget to hit that bell to stay up to date with all content I release, and why not share the video with your friends? I'm sure they'll like my personality and my attitude, so don't forget to share, and until the next video, stay safe and remain legend.